Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight, and we'll jump right into the questions. So first, we want to know what drew everyone to the Southwest. And Julia, we'll start with you.
Well, I was born here. I was born in San Antonio, moved to Houston, then Austin. I stayed here. Love it. Other than not being, we're a little landlocked in Dallas, so not being right by the ocean, which is my favorite. We make many trips there. Daughter lives in California now, but we spend a lot of time Florida, around the Gulf of Mexico. So, I was born here.
Good answer. And Julie and James, what about you both?
Well, for me, I first visited Santa Fe in about 1993 or 4. And the minute we arrived downtown, I was entranced with the place and never ceased to be entranced. And I always knew I wanted to come and live here one day. And then about 10 years later, when I have a big change of life circumstances, I decided it was time for an adventure. And so kind of coerced James into moving here. And we've been here for almost 19 years.
I love it. And what about you, David?
Well, I'd like to tell you that it was the turquoise skies and the endless vistas that brought me here. But the fact of the matter is, I moved here to start a building business, which I did do for a long period of time, and have stayed, and am very glad I have. And getting back into the art business couldn't be a better place.
I agree. Well, we can see a little bit of the Southwest inspiration through all your pieces, definitely.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I love all of your great painters, and the work is just terrific. So what artists have inspired you? David, let's start with you.
Well, I would cite 3. One is Charles Birchfield. The second is Kerry James Marshall. And the third is now it's got to come to me here. Well, let me back up. Birchfield, the artists that I find interesting are involved, have an interest in a sense of place. And Birchfield is from upstate New York and lived in that part of the world for a very long time. He documents the things around him, but in a mystical, transcendental way that I think is unparalleled. Kerry James Marshall, South Central LA, during the turbulent period of the late 60s, early 70s. His documentary of that area is just amazing. And then the last person is James Levitt, who's also an Angelino, and documents the Los Angeles area through the filter of Hollywood. Their sense of place is amazing. And I would add one thing as a nod to Redwood and the new the live shows coming up. I saw retrospectives of Kerry James Marshall and Levitt at the LA MoCA. Absolutely amazing. There's nothing like seeing art live.
So true. We can't wait to get back to live events. I was actually, this is kind of a funny story. It's totally off track here, but a friend of ours here wants to install some glass work on, those floating glass pieces that people make, right? And I couldn't remember the artist's name that I know, but I know that Gary Tracek knows him, and Gary lives in Miami. So I texted Gary this morning. I'm like, hey, what's that artist's name with the glass pieces? And all of a sudden I get a picture back. He's with me now. We're doing an installation. And I'm like, oh, that's so great. Art keeps selling, and people are now getting out there and doing stuff. So we're happy about that. How about you, Julia? What artists have inspired you?
Well, I think initially it was the 50s abstract expressionists. But then when we came to Santa Fe and started going to a lot of the shows here, early on, there were a group of Santa Fe artists that I found very inspirational. Reg Loving, a guy named Sam Scott, Frank Ettenberg, Eugene Newman. They had many shows here in the early days that we were here. And I just loved all of their work. Their work really reflected a sense of the Southwest to me, especially Reg Loving had a lot of, imagery in his work that was that way. And Sam Scott was a wonderful abstract expressionist. Sadly, none of them really show here anymore. I think, I'm not sure all of them are still alive, but they were an incredibly inspirational group to start out with here.
And James?
Well, let me just go back a quick story, because Julie didn't really have to force me to come to Santa Fe. We wanted to come to this was a mecca. This was like a huge thing we were doing. We were going to come here and be great artists, and we were so impressed when we saw Canyon Road and the galleries and the artists. And as we were leaving, there's this guy in a red Ford truck putting his painting in that truck. And I said, I want to be that guy, Julie. That's the guy I want to be now. And I ended up with a red Ford truck.
Not long after that.
And then every time, then I'm putting my paintings in there. I'm fulfilling this, we considered it destiny, like fate. We're coming to this incredible place. We're making this huge life change. You don't have to twist our arm. We're all down for it. This is going to be the greatest experience of our lives. And it has turned out that way,
Definitely.
And so that's my story of getting here. And I'm basically a person who just lets unexpected things happen to me. And if they're good, I go with it. And along with Julie, the art scene here was just fertile with these old abstract guys. And I mean old, like they were probably 60s and 70s. The work was so fantastic and so modern. And all these shows like we went to just inspired us so much. And we were able to pick up a thread from, I'm a big German expressionist fan. I think you all know that. And Julie's a 40s and 50s abstract fan. And so we started seeing the connection between what was happening right in front of our eyes and all the things we'd read about and dreamed about. And so we had like this whole new set of heroes, and we were off and running.
Nice. How about you, Julia? Do you have any favorite artists?
I do. My mom. My mother is a prolific artist. She's, I was blessed to grow up around artists and sculptors. My father-in-law is a civil engineer and a well-known sculptor. He's passed now, but both of them were very inspiring to me, among others. Current Lawrence Osborne in New Orleans. We go there every Thanksgiving, and his bright colors and fluid lines, incredible artist. He's now in a children's museum. They've modeled children's architecture after him, just very fluid lines, very bright colors, vibrant guy, real inspiration, I think.
Nice. And people think of Southwest, they think of like those woven baskets and Kachina dolls and blankets and things, but there's so much more. So David, why don't you tell us what you're working on right now?
Well, the work that I do has to do with my own sense of place. And my sense of place is Albuquerque, New Mexico. We live near the river. I walk near the river virtually, every week. Walk around the neighborhood and just kind of poke around. But it's the architecture, the suburban architecture that with the amazing skies and the intersection between those two things, for me is a never-ending source of inspiration. Skies here change all the time. They're dramatic, they're amazing. You just can't go wrong, and it's just endless.
Well, I'm going to give you each a compliment right now. David, it's your work is so identifiable, and so many artists come to, we deal with 1,000 artists every year, and they always ask me the same question, especially the younger ones that come to the show. How can I be successful? And you've got to create something identifiable. If you think of a Picasso, you think of a Picasso or a Renoir or a Monet, right? all these, you think of even Warhol, right? You know, it's a screen printed Warhol. But your work is so identifiable. I love it. Same with James and the figurative work with the horses, and Julie, your abstracts, and Julia, your seascapes and skyscapes. You guys have really nailed it. And that's why you're successful and on this call right now. So just a little tip of the hat to all of you there.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So there was one other artist, Stephen Robeck, who he resides in Santa Fe. He couldn't be with us today because he's out on a photo safari, he calls it. But he sent an amazing 1-minute video of some of his favorite Southwest locations. So we're gonna play that for everyone now. And then everybody watching, I wanna remind you that if you wanna see more of David's work, Julia's work, or James and Julie's, you can go on the RAVE site and search for their name, and there's I think 28 artists we have up during this RAVE Austin, and you can get directly in touch with them to purchase the work, and we encourage you to do that. So let's play the video.
Greetings all. Sorry I can't join you live from my studio. We left Santa Fe a few days ago on a photo safari in Arizona, but I did want to share a favorite destination here in the Southwest. At the end of a long photo trip that included Taos, Georgia O'Keeffe's magical ghost ranch, and several truly abandoned ghost towns, we first visited White Sands National Monument. In southern New Mexico, a long day's drive from Austin, it's a fantastic place, especially for photographers. The dunes are white as snow because they're not actually made of sand like most dunes. They're made of gypsum, the same material used to make wallboard. And since the area sits above 4,000 feet in elevation, the skies are often a deep, rich blue. There are endless opportunities to find dramatic dunescapes and abstract images that capture the unique way the dunes move and change in wind and weather. Some of these textures present an optical illusion I still don't understand. Many images look like drifts of snow or scoops of melted ice cream sitting on the surface, but in fact, they're the hollows of weathered footprints. Strange but beautiful. If you're ever in the area, don't miss it. I hope you enjoyed seeing these images from White Sands, and thanks for tuning in to RAVE Focus Austin.
And thank you everyone for being with us today. It's been really great to talk to you and see your faces. And we hope to see you soon at one of our Redwood upcoming live fairs. And again, for those watching, make sure to visit these artists' booth pages, send them a note, and let them know in their guest book when you find a piece that you really love. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.